All right, so are you ready to like really get into some deep stuff today?
I am.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a deep dive today into the concepts of source and the soul's journey.
Okay.
And all this comes from this article that we found that was inspired by that video, Are We in a Soul Trap? Have you seen that one?
I have. Yeah, it's a great video. Very thought-provoking.
It is.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is this perspective, like, kind of turns everything upside down.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about source as a neutral force,
Mm-hmm.
not a judgmental being or anything, just purely focused on balance and evolution.
Yeah, it's a perspective that really challenges, how we typically think about spirituality and religion and all that.
Yeah.
Instead of like a deity, deciding our fate or, kind of weighing in on things, it's more about this like universal balancing act.
Right.
This constant kind of dance of light and dark energies.
So if source is neutral,
Mm.
what does that mean for things like prayer?
Right.
Because if there's no intervention, is it kind of like predetermination?
Yeah, it really makes you rethink, those traditional concepts instead of praying for things to go a certain way.
Right.
Maybe it becomes more about, aligning ourselves with the flow,
Yeah.
with these universal energies, recognizing that, source isn't necessarily there to grant wishes,
Right.
but rather to, maintain this kind of cosmic equilibrium.
Yeah, that's a pretty big shift.
Yeah.
It's kind of like instead of seeking favors, we're like working with the system,
Mm-hmm.
understanding like the rules of the game, so to speak.
I like that. Yeah.
And speaking of rules, this article also talks about souls being created by source
Okay.
and then sent out on these like epic journeys of experience.
Yeah, and it gets even more kind of mind-bending when you consider that a soul that doesn't progress might be like reabsorbed back into source
Whoa.
to kind of create new souls.
Oh,
It's like
wow.
this continuous cycle of creation, experience, and evolution.
Okay, so walk us through this journey.
Yeah.
What does this process entail?
Well, think of it as like a grand odyssey, with 3 main stages.
Okay.
The first is, the familiar realm of human and animal lives,
Right.
where we gather experiences and work through, karmic debts.
Right.
It's about, learning, growing, and resolving those past actions.
Okay.
And then after physical life,
Mm-hmm.
the journey might continue in the spirit world,
Okay.
perhaps taking on roles as guides or mentors, helping other souls on their paths.
So it's not just about our human experience then,
Right.
but potentially this like broader spectrum of existence.
Exactly.
What happens in the spirit world though?
Well, it's not necessarily about waiting around, It's more about service and continued learning.
Okay.
Imagine souls kind of supporting each other,
Right.
sharing wisdom from their own journeys,
Right.
perhaps even influencing events in the physical realm.
Interesting.
And ultimately, the goal is to return to source,
Mm-hmm.
to merge back into that unified consciousness.
Yeah, it's kind of like graduating after this long, challenging course
Right.
and then returning to the source of all knowledge and experience.
Exactly.
But this whole concept of souls being sent out by source,
Mm-hmm.
it does kind of make you wonder about this whole idea of a soul trap.
I know, right?
Are we here by choice or are we stuck?
Right.
I mean, it's a big question a lot of people have.
It is, and the article addresses it head on.
Oh, it does?
Yeah, it actually challenges the notion of a soul trap.
Okay.
And it proposes instead that reincarnation is a choice,
A choice.
an opportunity for souls to evolve and fulfill their purpose,
Okay.
within this grand scheme of things.
So no one's forcing us to be here.
Right.
We're choosing to come back lifetime after lifetime.
The idea is that we're not, victims of circumstance, but active participants
Okay.
in our own evolution.
That does feel a lot more empowering
It does,
than being trapped.
for sure.
And this whole concept of choice.
Right.
How does that tie into like karma
Right.
and soul contracts?
Well, karma in this framework isn't about punishment.
Oh,
It's about balance.
okay.
It's the energy created by our actions, both positive and negative,
Mm-hmm.
that carries over from lifetime to lifetime.
Right.
Think of it as like a cosmic accounting system.
I like that.
And soul contracts are like pre-agreed challenges
Okay.
that we choose to experience in a
fine.
given lifetime to help us evolve.
So we're choosing these challenges
Yeah.
before we even like incarnate.
The idea is that, we're coming in and saying, okay, I want to learn this.
Wow.
I want to experience that.
It's like signing up for a really intense obstacle course
Yeah,
and knowing it's going to be tough, but ultimately worth it.
exactly.
The growth we'll experience.
And this brings us to a really critical point.
What's that?
Reframing how we view suffering.
Okay.
If challenges are opportunities for growth,
Yeah.
then suffering, while undoubtedly difficult, becomes less about victimhood
Yeah.
and more about, a necessary part of the evolutionary process.
That's a pretty radical shift
It is.
from our typical, like, aversion to pain and discomfort.
Definitely.
But if we embrace the idea that suffering can be a catalyst for growth, how does that change how we approach, like, those really difficult times?
That's where the article highlights the importance of tools and practices.
Okay.
And that's what we'll dive into next.
That's perfect. I can't wait.
Right. It's
Perfect.
not about, making suffering easier. It's more about like approaching it with a different lens.
Yeah.
And the article specifically mentions Crea Yoga
Okay.
as a practice
Yeah.
that's designed to kind of help us work with universal energies
Mm.
and release those like emotional burdens.
Crea Yoga, that's not something you hear every day.
No, it's not.
What's the, like, core idea behind it?
Well, it's about aligning ourselves with the natural flow of energy in the universe,
Okay.
using specific movements and techniques
Uh-huh.
to release blockages and promote healing.
So instead of, like, praying for relief from suffering, we're taking an active role in transforming it
Exactly.
through these practices.
And the article also mentions mindfulness and meditation
Okay.
as powerful tools as well.
Right.
It's not about escaping difficult emotions.
Right.
It's about cultivating awareness and acceptance of what is.
Yeah.
By observing our thoughts and feelings without judgment,
Mm-hmm.
we create space for healing and transformation.
Yeah. I've found that even, like, simple things,
Yeah.
like journaling or
Yeah.
spending time in nature,
Right.
can have a similar effect.
Totally.
It's like creating that mental space to process and reframe challenges.
Absolutely. Finding what works for you is key.
Yeah.
And remember the soul contracts we discussed.
Oh, yeah.
Understanding that we chose these challenges before incarnating
Right.
can also be incredibly empowering.
Right, because it's like, okay, I signed up for this.
Yeah.
It's tough, but there's a reason for it.
Right.
And I'm going to learn from it.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
like having that aha moment in the middle of a frustrating video game.
Yes.
You realize you're meant to be facing this like really difficult boss.
Totally.
It's part of the progression.
Yeah, I got to do it.
And overcoming it unlocks a new level of understanding.
I like that.
And this brings us to another point the article makes.
Okay, what's that?
Viewing life as a game.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Explain this life as a game concept.
So instead of seeing life as this random series of events,
Right.
we can view it as this grand cosmic game
Okay.
where souls are the players, all contributing to the evolution of the system.
So we're all players in this game, each with
Correct.
our own unique set of skills and challenges,
Right.
but ultimately working towards a shared goal.
Yeah, and if we embrace this perspective,
Yeah.
it changes our relationship with difficulty.
Okay.
Setbacks become less about personal failure
Right.
and more about learning opportunities.
Yeah.
Obstacles become puzzles to solve, challenges to overcome.
It's like reframing that feeling of being stuck in a game.
I know, right?
Instead of getting frustrated,
Yeah.
you start experimenting, trying different approaches, knowing there's a solution out there.
Yeah.
And the process of finding it is part of the fun.
Precisely. And the article emphasizes that, this game isn't about winning or losing.
Yeah.
It's about growth, evolution, and ultimately the return to source
Yeah.
with, a wealth of experience and wisdom.
That's a pretty cool way to think about it.
Yeah.
We're all on this epic quest together, learning and growing along the way.
Oh, I love that.
But suffering is still suffering no matter how we frame it.
Yeah.
How do we reconcile this idea of a neutral source with the very human desire to, like, avoid pain?
That's a valid point, and I think that's where, practices like Crea Yoga,
Yeah.
mindfulness, and understanding our soul contracts, they
Right.
come in. They're not about, erasing the human experience of suffering,
Right.
but rather giving us tools to navigate it more
Yeah.
skillfully, to transform it into something meaningful,
I see.
to extract the lessons and emerge stronger on the other side.
It's like we're given a map and a compass to navigate this challenging terrain.
Right.
But the journey itself is still up to us.
Exactly.
We have to choose to use the tools
Right.
to engage with the challenges, to learn and grow from the experience.
And it's a continuous process. There's
Right.
no finish line, just
Yeah.
constant evolution.
So what does this all mean for us here and now?
Right.
How do we take these profound concepts
Yeah.
and actually apply them to our everyday lives?
Right.
What's the takeaway for our listeners?
It's easy to talk about, source and soul journeys and all that.
Right.
But then it's like, how do we actually make that real?
Yeah. How do we actually like live it?
I think it starts with just like a little shift in how we see things. Like
Okay.
when something tough happens,
Yeah.
instead of thinking, ooh, why me?
Right.
It's more like, okay, what am I learning here?
Of the lesson.
Yeah, and remembering that suffering,
Which we never want.
of course, but you can actually lead to amazing change.
You're saying it can be like a catalyst,
Yeah, like a fast track.
even when it's hard.
Even then, yeah.
But that's so hard to do alone.
It is. And that's where those practices we talked about,
Like Crea Yoga,
Crea Yoga mindfulness meditation,
they help.
they give us tools.
It's like packing for a trip.
Right.
You know, there'll be good days and bad,
Totally.
but we're prepared.
And we're not just along for the ride.
We get to choose
We do.
which path to take.
And we can see the bigger picture, too.
You mean how we're all connected?
Yeah, like our little journeys are all part of this huge thing.
It's kind of mind-blowing.
It is.
Like we're all in this cosmic dance together.
Even if we don't always get it,
Even if we have doubts,
it's still powerful.
it's like choosing curiosity
Yeah.
over being scared.
Instead of hiding from what we don't know.
We're like, bring it on.
Exactly.
Trusting that there's a reason,
There is.
even when things are crazy.
So as we finish up today,
Mm-hmm.
I want to leave you with a question.
Okay.
Knowing you're part of this huge journey,
Yeah,
how could you face your challenges differently?
that's a good one.
What can you do to grow?
To really play the game.
That's it.
That is a powerful question.
And if Crea Yoga or any of that stuff sounds interesting,
Yeah.
look into it.
There's so much out there to help us.
It's not about being perfect.
It's about the journey.
Keep growing, keep learning.
Keep going.
That's it.
This was awesome. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring and keep playing the game.